Hello, WonderCon. How are we doing today? Welcome to Impact 24's fourth annual Scene Breakdown Behind the Camera of Film and TV Shows panel. I'm very excited to be here today. Who's excited to be here? I think we could do a little bit better than that. Who's excited to be here? Saturday WonderCon, let's do it. I'm Chris Rodriguez. I'm very excited to be here today to talk with some of these amazing creatives who inspire me in my work. And I think we should just jump right in, because if we have enough time at the end, we might be able to do some audience questions. So, okay, this first question's for everyone. Feel free to jump in. When you first came onto your projects, what were some of the first conversations you had with some of the key leaders, maybe producers, department heads, specifically about tone and, how did that change your approach to the project, shaping the audience experience?
Sure, I can start. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I come from an Armenian background, and our culture has been through a lot of hardship in its entirety. So I came onto this project from basically the inception of it, and work with the director, writer on how to make this the most positive and happy feeling movie of all time that Armenians have created, kind of situation. So that's kind of where it stemmed from. A Winter Song it's like a rom-com / Christmas movie, and it's the first English language romantic comedy ever filmed in Armenia. So with that, mindset of it, thank you everyone. We wanted to create something that people can watch from any background and kind of just be happy watching it and come out of it just feeling good about themselves. So, yeah.
And just really quickly, what was that like shooting in Armenia?
It was a crazy experience. Shooting in a different country, working with other crews, in complete different languages is really an experience everyone should definitely experience themselves. Teaches you a lot of patience, teaches you how other cultures just operate, and it's really, really interesting.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Gedaly?
I'm working on Shadow of the Mages. It's a fantasy adventure series, and from the very beginning, it was very much a self-generated thing to start with friends who are fans of fantasy, and we were wanting to work together, and we said, the world is dark and full of terrors. Let's make something that's fun, something that feels like the things we grew up with, like Willow, 80s fantasy, Xena, Hercules, things that are just fun, feel good, and there's magic and sword fights. Let's do that. So it was very much just getting people together, you like swords, you like magic, you like feel good things. Let's have a good time and really just make ourselves feel like kids again and really go on a quest and tell a story about friendship that inspires us and makes us want to connect with other people and do the kinds of things that we love. There's a lot that's dark, and we wanted something that could really anchor us in let's work together as friends towards making good stuff, good art, and good community. And that was the guiding principle for us.
Interesting, thank you.
I think we all have a shared approach to making fun and warm-hearted projects on this panel. So on the Artful Dodger, my first conversations in 2016, 2017, we were looking at comparisons. So we looked at projects like Pirates of the Caribbean or the Guy Ritchie Sherlock series to try and locate our tone. We have a pretty distinctive tone on the Artful Dodger. And for me, it's really about trying to coordinate a cohesive vision of that to the studios, and then once we've solidified that in the scripts and across the entire production, to communicate then to the heads of department. But certainly reference films were helpful. And I remember when I broke the pilot, I worked with a mentor and colleague of mine, Sal Caleros, who's a writer, executive producer, and he said, this show has a warm heart. And that's really important. And I think you need to keep your eye on that. It's a gritty world with a warm heart. And Sal really framed that for me back in 2018 when I wrote the pilot. And I think that's something I've carried. And so hopefully it's a gritty world with a warm heart. That's what we went for.
For me, I'm moving on, finishing my 6th feature now, but the one that you just saw up there is called I'm Fine, Thanks for Asking, and I'm glad they showed that one because that was my first feature, and it was made with my stimulus check and some unemployment money during the pandemic. And so I went to USC for my master's in film, so I just called my people. My father always told me, your greatest resource is not money, it's people. if you have your community, you can get things done that you would never believe. And that film went on to win at South by Southwest Film Festival, not even realizing we would even go that far. I just wanted to make something with friends. So tonally, because it was the middle of the pandemic, I wanted to focus on something that people were going through currently. And one thing that I noticed is that, I'm born and raised in Los Angeles, and we've always had a housing issue, and we still do today. And during the pandemic, it got even worse, and I started seeing more mothers and children on the streets. And so I wanted to speak to that. And so this story is about a mother who's pretending to her daughter that they're only camping while she's secretly trying to get the last bit of money to get them in an apartment. Now, that's a very heavy subject, right? But I wanted to tonally make it more palatable, so we made it a dramedy. So her only means of transportation are roller skates. And so she comes across, it's kind of like an Odysseus type of story where she comes across all these different characters who are either helping her or hindering her to keep her promise to her daughter by the end of the day that they can go home. And so I also like to deal with color a lot. You'll see that she was in this yellow top with this pink sports bra underneath. The yellow represented family, joy, innocence of her daughter. And as the movie goes on, you'll see that she ends up losing that yellow shirt. And the pink represents turmoil, uncertainty, and the same with blue. So I assign a lot of rules to colors, even though we might not know it, but you feel it in the association with what's happening to your main character in the story.
That was awesome. Hi, everybody. I'm Kenny, and I did music for Locker Diaries, Zombies. So if you have an 8-year-old in your house, you might be familiar with Disney's Zombies IP, which is a huge thing. And what they did was they shrunk it down to vertical content. Yes. First time a major studio has done that. So I'm very lucky to be the first composer to be doing on that stuff. So I'm excited to spill more detail, and maybe we'll get into some deeper questions later in the hour. So also, it's my first WonderCon. I'm excited to be here. So let's have some fun.
Oh, hi, I'm Wes Cardino. I'm the cinematographer on Nobody Wants This.
I love Nobody Wants This.
Thank you. Tone. Yeah, no, my first conversations were, can you shoot fast and make everyone look pretty? No, kidding. The show is like a rom-com, I guess, and it bounces back and forth between dramatic moments and comedic moments, and so that was really important to the showrunners and the creators and and the actors, and in that regard, the conversations were about whether or not we were going to go for a more sort of, I guess, less like bright, flat kind of comedic look. We wanted the show to not be that. We don't need to lean into that to like telegraph to the audience that it needs to be comedic, So wanted those moments to land on their own, and it gave room and space for the dramatic moments to play out well, So I thought that was kind of something. Those are like early conversations. There's a lot of heart and stuff like that. So there's, we try to make it look a little more dramatic and less just kind of like network comedy or something. I mean, I think that's.
Oh, you all nailed it. Have you seen Nobody Wants This? It's phenomenal, right?
Well, I appreciate that.
And I really appreciate you bringing up the flat lighting, which is plaguing so many modern TV shows and movies. Nobody Wants This definitely stands out in the way that it's shot. So thank you for that.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
The business needs it. Okay, my next question is for the creators, the directors, the showrunners. When you're leading a production, when you're like at the top of a production and you're leading this whole team of people, how do you give room for the creatives that you work with to sort of put their own spin on things while at the same time keeping, everyone in line with, your vision, a singular vision? How do you balance that? Maybe we start over here.
Sure. I mean, For our project, I just tapped into my network. I knew people that I trusted, who were heads of departments creatively involved. Our editor, fresh off of her Eddie Award-winning, Yvette Amirian, is here today. And she was an integral part. She was also a producer on the movie as well, and she was an integral part, let's say, for example, in post for shaping this movie and how it came out. And then like our cinematographer, for example, was involved very early in the project as well. So I knew people who I trusted, who I could, let them handle the creative things, and then just based on just having the production come together, that was kind of the brunt of the work, working with the local production crew in Armenia as well. So just network a lot and trust the people you trust, and kind of that's how you bring a movie together and you kind of create something really special.
Good, Ollie?
So for Shadow of the Mages, it being a feel-good adventure fantasy, it was really just about first getting the collaborators who were like, this is their kind of thing. People who are fantasy geeks, both fans of the genre, but also that it's something they want to do or have been doing it. For example, our composer was an additional composer on the Wheel of Time TV show, and he was like, let me at it. So he loves fantasy and was all about it. And a lot of the cast and crew are the type of people who are coming to events and go to the bottom shelf at Barnes & Noble to find what's the Tor fantasy book that's new. And so that was a lot of it. It's like they understood what kind of thing it is. And once they have good people, and it's up to me to really get them on board, like this is how it should look, this is how it should feel, but I'm also very quick to say, like, what do you think? If they feel like they get it, I'm very quick to trust people, because I trust my collaborators of like, just go for it. Here's what I'm thinking, and then they'll say it like this, like that, and we'll move in a direction. And I love just, it's so great to work with people who really know what they're doing and have their own ideas, where like I can show them an angle and they say, oh, that's a square, and they take it into a bigger thing. So, because there's so much to do as a writer, director, producer, a lot of hats. Just have people run with it. So when our costume designer Charlie is like, what do you think about that and that? I'm like, that's way better than I would have come up with. So it feels really nice to have creators I can trust and who really believe in the kind of thing we're doing.
Yeah, trust is very important when you're leading a project like that.
Yeah.
James, I'm curious because I imagine you have a really big team of people working on your show. So
yeah, we do. The Artful Dodger is a big beast. I think it's about 500 on the show.
Wow.
And for me, I see it as my key responsibility is to protect the heart and soul of the show, to know what the show is, and to be able to communicate that in a way that's really clear and distinctive. And I think that often enough time is not put into that. And it takes time to be able to communicate exactly what this project is, to set out the parameters for what the project is. And then to do a lot of work, with my colleagues at the production company, Curio Sony, to hire heads of department who we trust, to pick up on your point, to execute within that parameter. And my approach to it is, if as a creator, as a creative EP, you set out a very clear situation of what you're looking for, and you also have a very clear understanding of where the lines are, right? I don't get involved in which lens to swing, because that's my cinematographer's expertise. Yeah. I set out what I'm looking for clearly, and then they come up with something better than I would have ever been able to imagine. So what I try to do is to set a really clear parameter for, here's what the show is, and then I want to get out of people's way and let them cook. I'm always there to adjust, like, is this within or outside of our parameter? But ultimately, you've got to let the professionals do their best work. And that's what I think heightens the show. Television is a team sport. Mm-hmm. And I think once you've clearly communicated that vision, and you continue to tend that from day to day with hundreds of micro decisions, but it's about trusting people and letting them cook and doing their best work. So that's where I come from.
I love that you just said let them cook.
It's actually not my phrase.
You're so cool, James.
Well, thank you. You're the first person who's ever said that. So I feel very honored.
I want to co-sign. I think what you're hearing right now is to surround yourself with geniuses, right?
Right.
You need to surround yourself with people who are smarter than you because they make you look good. And so that's what the heads of departments, so you've been hearing about heads of departments for production design, for cinematography, for costume, but I'm going to talk to you as a director. How many people are aspiring directors, are directors, or actors in here? Exactly. So the one thing people don't talk about is I love to call my actors the heads of department for their character.
Yes.
So I also expect, so the same expectations that I have as a director that I do of all my other heads of departments, I have the same for the actor. I'm going to know the script. Oftentimes I've written it, but sometimes I haven't if I'm directing for a studio or such. But I'm going to have my expectations, my ideas of a backstory, but I also expect my head of department for that character, who is that actor that was hired, to have done the work, to have done the background ideas applied to the character and to run them by. And oftentimes actors don't get that opportunity. Oftentimes they're treated like puppets and they're just told stand here, move there, and how maybe the director feels or maybe the showrunner feels about the character. And it's when you do get an opportunity or you do get a showrunner or a director that lets you contribute, which I strongly encourage of everyone, because like people, they studied their craft. Why are you hiring them if you don't trust them? We trust every other head of department, so we need to trust our actors. So as actors, continue to work on your craft and master it. But that's easy for me, because if I hired you, that means I trust you. And so that means I've looked into you and I believe that you are going to put the work into your character, just like my DP is going to put the work into what they're thinking for the look and the lenses and all that. So that's how I work with my team.
Can I just pick up on that and really echo and endorse it? I strongly agree with that. And I treat also my leads as the head of department of that character. And I rely on them heavily because I don't have the capacity to go into the granularity that they do. I don't have their training, as Kelley says. And with the leads on the show, there's always an open door. They've got my cell number. They can phone me up and say, hey, I don't think this scene, I don't quite get why this beat is not coming from A to B, right? And we'll work on it together, we'll revise it together. Yeah. But I rely on that.
And it makes it better.
It makes it better because their instincts, I might have an actor say, hey, I was thinking the motivation was this. And to me, I was going, well, actually, when I wrote it, I thought it was that, but their motivation is better, right?
It's gotta work. I'm just going to co-sign, but it's still, this isn't a democracy. When you're leading on set, you still need to be the leader, okay? You're not taking a survey of everyone's opinions. You are listening to them, you're taking them in, and you're factoring it in to see if it works with the vision as a whole. So you still need to have leadership, but open your ears and collaborate and trust your gut on the ideas that come your way.
Completely co-sign that. We need to work together.
I love that. You hear often, I don't know if you've heard this before, that actors make the movie. Really, they're the ones that are like in the mud, in the rain. I always say that, So I love that you treat them like that and give them the space to do their thing,
Yeah.
Kenny, Wes, how do you guys build tone? Composing, cinematography, what tricks, I feel like every time I talk to composers or cinematographers, they always have all these little tricks to tap into emotions and talk to me about that a little bit.
Sure. I'm as a composer, I'm always accused of being a witch doctor in many ways. We have lots and lots of tricks. But really, it just comes from, as everyone has been doing here, you become a master of your craft. You study, you do your homework, you listen to hours and hours and hours of music. I went to college for music too, so I had the benefit of a conservatory study, listening to the great masters like Ravel and Beethoven and things like that. And you pick up things from those guys and gals too. And what makes tone is often generated from applying your personal voice, and how you find that is you got to listen to all that stuff and you got to decide what you like and what you want to move on from. and that will turn into something that's very personal to you. So, and tone for music is often also very instinctual. So I got to spend time with the material. For example, Locker Diaries, I had to just watch over and over these short little episodes, and even though they're only 3 minutes long, which is an eternity for social media platforms, there's a lot you can say in that amount of time, and there's a lot of tone you can derive, and I really drew back to 20 years of writing film music to figure out how to make these jokes land, how to get the little sweet moments between these romantic characters, and yeah, that's what it is. It's a lifetime of work put into that.
Wes?
Tone and cinematography, I guess. Well, I don't know if I have any like deep, insightful things to say about that. I think like I read a script, I have a feeling about it. I have an initial feeling and how it strikes me, and that probably ends up carrying through the project for me. It's like I go off those first impressions of the script, and that's where like the tone grows out for me. And strangely, I don't really go to visuals first when I'm trying to think about the tone of a project. I actually listen to music, and that's the first place that I go to. Songs that I think inspire me and relate to what I'm feeling while I'm reading the script. And then when I finally get to the process of pre-production, before shooting, talking to directors, that's when we start to discuss what type of camera movement we want, what kind of lenses we want to use, what kind of aspect ratio we're going to use to tell that story and create the tone. And it becomes, is it a handheld movie? Is it frenetic, or is it more a more steady style handheld, like nobody wants this, it's not like a crazy, frenetic, like back and forth Paul Greengrass style thing. Or is it dolly work, or is it Steadicam? And all those tools have different feelings to them. A lot of people, for instance, they'll do a Steadicam shot when it should be a dolly shot, but those two tools are different, and they have different feelings, and it's subtle and it's nuanced, but it's there. Dollies are more solid and they move more deliberately than Steadicams, and if you don't know what a Steadicam is, it's like a rig that you put the camera on and the operator, it floats. It's
very heavy.
Yeah, it's very heavy, but it's a gimbal that basically an operator carries around, and the camera can float. And that, but the dolly it's on an arm, and it's very static, but you can move it in many directions, or crane, very similar thing. So all those, I think about all that after I've had a sort of initial burst of inspiration through the script first and foremost, and then through the music that I like to connect to that. And then later on, the images come, because for me, especially in this day and age with like Shot Deck and all these places that you can get screen grabs, a lot of people go to these other movies, these other shows that they're inspired by, which there's nothing wrong with that, but you have to be careful as a visual artist, because you don't want to be derivative. You want to come up with something new or something interesting or something that fits your story specifically. So I don't go to that place first. That's like the last place I'll go to, and it's more for like color and trying to get people who maybe don't have as much of an imagination about what it should look like to say to them, hey, these colors, I like these colors, I like this sort of composition. And it's less about being, we should make it look like this,
That's interesting, Wes. So when you are, if you ever are, presenting a deck, and if you're pulling, let's say, from Shot Deck for the color samples, what are you doing to visually show the new look that you're planning on? Are you a type of DP that's going to start exploring AI and describe that? Because I want to go down that road.
Oh no!
I am not an advocate of AI in the visual arts. I'm really not. well, I can tell you this much. All of the AI stuff out there right now is driven by stealing other people's ideas and work. And all of that work comes from years and years and years of practice and learning from other people. And there's a difference between that and paying homage to other people and maybe emulating them. But AI is not doing that. It's just stealing from other people, and I'm very against that. And so that's not my.
How do you do it?
I try to be very careful about the types of images I pull, and try not to pull images from movies and TV that are very popular and that are sort of burned into the consciousness of viewers, because then you're not forcing that onto a creator who, of course, they're creative and they have their ideas, but maybe they've watched things and they're inspired by things. But I just try to be very careful about that, so it's not something that they can immediately reference, and because that can be either force you into something you don't want to do, or it can disqualify you because they're like, well, I don't like that show, or I don't like that movie. So,
do you do like art? Do you reference like?
Yeah, I like to use art, all that stuff. Yeah, and I do like to put music, references, not audibly on a deck, but allow people to say, hey, I really like this song and you should listen to it, and I think it's inspiring for this project.
So do you share that music with the directors?
I'll when I talk to the creators and stuff, absolutely.
Very interesting. I do the same thing. The first thing I do on a new project is I make a playlist. It's interesting.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah. I have a playlist that I will listen to for an entire season, like the exact same playlist, because it immediately puts your mind straight back into
absolutely
that feeling.
Right.
Yeah.
Edgar, this next question's for you. So for you, it's a little different. You're the star of the movie. You're also a producer. How does wearing these two different hats as an actor, as a producer, how does that inform your approach to the character? Does that affect the plot as you go digging deeper into the character? If you want to talk a little bit more about that, I'm interested.
Yeah, I don't think it affected the character negatively, so to say. Like it was just a really, I was very grateful and lucky to be a part of the process from the get-go. So like really understanding the story, shaping it to how we thought it would be most effective, finding the locations that bring the story to life and all that kind of stuff. So feeding the character in the best way possible, I would say, because then when you're in front of the camera, that like all of that work and all of that, figuring out who this person is and what they're going through throughout the whole script, it's like you were there from the very beginning of it, which really fed it and kind of it added a whole layer of love to it, which I know after some people saw it, came up to me and spoke to me about like, oh, they noticed this layer in the character and that layer in the character, which made me feel really good because like, okay, what we did actually worked. And it resonated with everybody, and people felt something when they watched it, and they thought of, it reminded them of something about themselves, or someone they loved, or someone they knew. So, when you're making a movie and you put everything you have into it, when people watch it and they have that feeling, it makes it all worth it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Gedaly, we need to talk about these action sequences, these sword fights in your project. In Shadow of the Mages, it's so interesting because it's very exciting, but it's also very character-driven. How do you approach these action sequences?
Yeah, I love sword fights. Anyone else like sword fights?
Woo! Woo!
Yeah, they're awesome. I grew up watching that kind of a thing. It's why I make movies. I watched Lord of the Rings and Pirates of the Caribbean and Mask of Zorro. My first filmmaking was like in middle school, making home videos of me and my brother doing lightsaber fights in the backyard with broomsticks. So to me, that is the excitement, like the best kind of action, because it is so personal and character-driven. It's a sword is heightened action, and so first thing is like it's got to be fun. There is the drama and the character-driven thing about it. So it's usually in connection to what is the character facing, what is their obstacle, but I like to have characters that are very capable, or we see them be, okay, we've seen they can fight, but now maybe we've seen them fight one person, but what happens when they're surrounded by three? The stakes are greater. They're more tested. They really need to get away. So heightening that action. Or our main character, Rhea, we see her early on be really cool, really good with the bow and arrow. But what happens when she gets stuck up on and it gets hit out of her hands? Now close quarters combat, different situations for all of the characters, figuring out, let's test their skills, because they're on a quest, there's challenges along the way, but essentially just keep changing the stakes. Once we see them do something, changing it up for them, adding different characters, and within that, just creating moments of fun and change throughout. So if we're in a fight, like, it may be serious for the characters, but they're a fight, especially in an adventure, like, it can get messy. There are moments of comedy where characters can bump into each other. So I want to make sure, like, tonally speaking, it remains fun to watch, even with high stakes, because we have either bits of comedy or just unexpected things that may pop up in there. And also, part of it's just making sure that the cast and crew is having fun with it. So time to rehearse, keeping it safe. Safety is key. We're making sure that, like, if we're struggling to do it, it's not going to look as fun. So we make sure to rehearse well, to have props that aren't actually going to hurt anyone. So in film, most of the time for swords, they're made out of aluminum and they're not sharpened. So they're still metal. It's still a 3-foot thing of metal that can hurt you. So we rehearse, we go slow. We actually got some foam props made so that if we want to whack each other, we can, which is great.
I'm just curious because, so in my film Puffing Iron that we just watched some clips of, we have a bunch of these like samurai sword fight scenes that I had to direct. How was the process of, like, for me, one thing that was so tricky, because it was my first time doing action sequences like that, is just the sheer amount of, like, different shot setups you need. And then also, like, I think it's funny you mentioned lightsabers, because we would rehearse everything with lightsabers before we would give them the aluminum sword. So, like, what about, like, just logistically, apart from the creative, like, how can you go into that a little bit? I'm curious.
So, I mean, it all started from rehearsal. It's first is figuring out, what are we going to do when I'm approaching. I actually did some of the fight choreography myself, but I also worked with my friend Mary, who's also fight choreographer to, like, a lot of great projects. What is it? I'm blanking on a few things, but she's worked on a lot of great stuff. But anyway, we're all sword geeks, so I'm saying, like, here's where we need to get in the story. Here are a few beats along the way. So, like, we're starting here. These two characters come together. This part of the fight, they split out here. This character comes in. Like, these are just milestones to achieve, and then we connect those with moves. We figure out what those are, and we rehearse it with the cast. Usually I'll shoot some reference and just blank, like, here's the action from a wide, just so that DP can see, here's what's happening. Because, like, the script doesn't have full details of the choreography. Then, during rehearsals, I'll tend to just walk around with my phone and figuring out what looks good. What are the moments where we're covering, a section of the fight that looks good, but then also what are the moments in between there where, like, oh, someone drops their sword. How does that character feel about it? We're pushing in for those sections and figuring out what those things are along the way. Then when we shoot, we'll have a pretty good plan of what we need to get, because also we're a lower budget project. We don't have time to spend on every setup. So we flew through. It was very fast, which I've done a few times, and only because, like, we've prepped. So that really helps. And I guess just the experience to be comfortable with it, because early on as a director, it's cool to, like, let's do it again. But now, having done a few action projects, I can see, like, that works. I know that'll work in the edit, and that having a very clear idea of how I want it to be put together really helps us stay on track and all of the prep we've done.
Very cool. Thank you. James, I'm very curious because I watched The Artful Dodger in preparation for this, and I was very surprised to see a show on Disney Plus where they're sawing people's limbs off. Can you talk a little bit more about the tone? I'm glad you mentioned Pirates. Pirates was one of the first things that came to my head when I was like, oh, I guess Pirates is on Disney Plus. But I'm curious about crafting the very particular tone of that show.
You know, so often we sit here going, I can't believe Disney is letting us do this, right? There was a moment on the first series where I had a cat eating a severed finger under a hospital bed. And we put that on Disney Plus. It was amazing. So I'd like to thank the trust and confidence that Disney has given us to explore those ideas. But you know, just to pick up on the fighting, we've had Lady Bell shooting arrows, sword fights, shootouts, all sorts of stunts on Dodger, and it's a lot of fun to do. Look, the tone is my own peculiar mind and heart on a screen. I feel so lucky to have had the privilege to get to make a show that really communicates my own bizarre tonal vision and how I see the world. And so I'm just really appreciative for Sony and Disney for trusting me and empowering me to do that. Tonally on Dodger, if you haven't seen it, when it's described in the press, no one quite knows how to describe the genre, and I don't either. It's my best friends from school who I grew up watching videos with. There used to be these things called video stores, right? And we went and borrowed videos from them. But they just said, this is your favorite stuff in film, and you've shaken it all up in a box, and it's somehow this tone. So it is, at the one hand, historically accurate, grisly medical procedural. It is also an action, comedy, heist, buddy criminal adventure, and it's also, thanks to our beautiful leads, a profound romantic drama. And as David Thewlis describes it, it's also very, very ridiculous. It's ridiculously silly at times too. And that tone works, I think, because it is my very distinctive authored voice, and then we have particular ways of keeping it. There are those three pillars we've got to keep in tandem. Grounded romantic drama, grounded medical drama, and then amusing high-stakes, hijinks adventure. It's a room full of largely comedy writers writing drama. So we write it as a drama because we're all instinctually comedy writers. We bring comedy to the dialogue. And then the other thing that we do is we're really, really purposeful about this is a drama scene, this is a comedy scene, and if we're shifting within a scene, we've got to have a very crisp and intentional transition. Certain of the characters are set up as drama characters. So like Lady Bell is a drama character, for example. Dodger is a drama character. Some of them are set up as comedy characters, Fanny, the governor. And so when those characters are shifting into other genres, again, we're really intentional about that. So I think it's a process of having a very clear, distinctive tonal vision as a creator, communicating that clearly, and then making sure we have a series of rules that we keep. But yes, when someone asks me to describe what genre my show is, I'm not quite sure how to describe it other than it's what I like on TV, and somehow I've been lucky enough to get to make that.
If you haven't watched it, you have to watch that show. It's very good.
Thank you.
Kelley, I'm curious. I'm Fine, Thanks for Asking is brought to life with very limited resources. I'm very glad you brought up the stimulus checks. I funded my first feature with stimulus checks too during COVID, so great use of that money.
Yeah.
What did it teach you about, supporting creatives and getting a project off the ground?
It taught me not to wait for permission. So a lot of us are out here, we've all are very familiar with the old way of making films. You make a short perhaps, and then you go to a film festival, and then maybe someone will see you, and maybe you'll get to direct for a studio one day, or maybe a financier, however the road is, but there's so much opportunity. I mean, Kenny was just talking about verticals. Things are moving that direction as well. So it's taught me to be open to what we are evolving into in our film industry. Story will always be the most important thing. And as long as you know how to tell a story, as long as you know how to write a story, you can hit any genre. You can do TV, you can do feature films, you can work for studios, or you can do verticals, which is, you really need to start looking into that because the studios are starting to invest. SAG just did a deal for their verticals, so now SAG actors are about to be a part of that too. So this is where it's going, and you need to start writing. I don't care if you think I'm just an actor, I'm just a director, I'm just somebody's mama or daddy. Y'all need to write. Tell your story. Everyone has a story, and your story might be the next thing, and it doesn't cost you anything. This isn't the 90s where you're going to Kodak and asking for film ins and piecing it together. You know, you have your phone. I mean, one of the biggest inspirations to me is Sean Baker.
Yeah.
When he made Tangerine on the iPhone, it was mind-blowing to me. And I'm Fine, Thanks for Asking is actually inspired by that. Sean Baker and Life is Beautiful. The themes in Life is Beautiful. But the execution was Sean Baker style Tangerine. Although we shot on the Black Magic Pocket because we had to like not get caught because we weren't supposed to be in the streets. But basically, I was ducking police and everything. But basically, it taught me grit.
Yeah.
It taught me not to wait. It taught me not to make excuses. This morning, I was laughing because there was a song that just popped in my head out of nowhere, and it was Dr. Dre, and the lyric was, "What's the difference between me and you? You talk a good one, but you don't do what you're supposed to do." And I was like, golly, Dr. Dre, you like. And it's because I just started writing something I should have been writing a million years ago, and I just kind of like blasted it out yesterday, and it was like, I was thinking, do I do it some more today after I have to speak here, or am I going to take a nap? And then it was like, nope, you got to do what you're supposed to do. No one's going to hand you anything. Don't wait for that. You have the opportunity to make your own things, tell your own stories, and now's the time to do it.
Amazing, thank you. Kenny, you mentioned that this is Disney is one of the first studios diving into the vertical space. What excited you about making music for this sort of new type of content? You know, how is it different? How did you change your approach?
Great question. Well, I should start off by saying Disney takes this vertical content stuff very seriously, and they treat it like any other TV or movie that they're doing. So, you know, we went in there. There was an actual budget for it. We even mixed the score in surround sound. So. That was fun to tell my mixer, oh yeah, I'm doing this TikTok series, and yeah, we need a 5.1 mix. So then, yeah, I had to explain, yeah, if people watch it on Disney Plus, they'll have the option to hear it in surround. So it exists out there if you want to catch it on that platform. But it also has to be able to fold down into a sound format that sounds great on the phone, and the engineers did a fantastic job doing that. But back to the earlier point, yeah, they really go full in, and a friend of mine was telling me Disney is like the Tiffany's of children's entertainment. So they're whatever they do, no matter what the end product is, it's going to be at the highest level, and that's what it felt like the whole time. So preparing for it and executing on it felt no different than doing a feature film. Much like the Naughty Nine, which Disney did, the Christmas movie that the director's here, by the way, Alberto Belli. It's in the audience. So it's very much like that.
Very cool. Thank you. Wes, would you consider yourself to be a funny guy? Your show's a comedy, right? How do you pick out comedy in your cinematography work? You know, how do you enhance it? I'm curious.
Well, my partner's here. She'd probably say you are not a funny person. I don't, I'll be honest with you. I don't think about that when I'm shooting. I don't really think, oh, this is a comedy. There's a way to shoot a comedy. It just never really occurred to me. I know that might seem strange or whatever, but I just approach it like I would approach any other show or movie that I would work on, Yeah.
It's also very tender. It's a tender show.
Yeah, there is tender. Yeah, there is a lot of tenderness. And that's with that show specifically. Why I didn't really think like, oh, I have to figure out a way to shoot it like a comedy. I just don't know what it means necessarily. So. Yeah. I don't know what that means. Like Wes Anderson makes comedies, but I don't think his movies look like comedies. But again, they do look like comedies because it's a comedy, right? Like, so yeah. So I just think, oh, what do I want? I just want it to look and specifically with Nobody, I was like, I just want it to look pretty and warm and inviting and have the audiences really get lost in that sort of aspirational world that we're creating there, you know, and let the comedy play and let the audience decide what they think is funny, let the drama play and decide what they think is dramatic, and then the tenderness and whatnot, and give the audience the freedom to decide what they think is funny and dramatic and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, we're running a little short on time here, so I want to end on a little lightning round across the board here. It's 2 questions. One is, what is something that you're especially proud of that maybe isn't super obvious to a first-time viewer of your work? And secondly, what is some advice you would give to aspiring creatives in entertainment? Why don't we start right here?
I answered my first question, but being the first English language romantic comedy filmed in Armenia, I think is a really big deal. For cultures who are kind of a minority, it's a really big deal to have, you know, this small of a project be on a platform as big as like Amazon Prime, for example. You know, when we were nominated for an Eddie Award for the editing, like we were up against movies that had budgets of like $50 million, for example. So like having a small win like this is a really big win for our culture, so I'm really proud of that. Secondly, if there's any actors in this room, I think I love being an actor. If I could work as an actor every single day of my life for the rest of my life, I'd be the happiest person in the world. But if you do want to, you know, my advice is if you ever want to go into this field, that make sure it's something you love more than anything else in your life, basically, and be able to devote your entire life to it, because that's kind of what it takes, and that's kind of the journey I'm on, and the journey I'll always be on. So I think that's what separates, you know, people who are not successful at it to the ones who are persistent and want to be successful and just love it for the sake of loving it.
Something that I'm very proud of for this project is that the feeling we were trying to create of it being like an 80s fantasy thing, it's just the type of movie that people love. So I was very nervous writing it. And then when I started to send it out to my collaborators, the feedback I got was like, it feels like this, without me just saying that's what it was supposed to be. And I was so happy that people got it. Like, this is what I'm trying to express, and I want people to feel good about it. And that just felt really great. So that's carried me throughout. Advice, I just think, you know, make the thing that's in your heart. A lot of the advice that I see fellow filmmakers going for is like, make the low budget contained indie thing. And I said, no, we're doing an epic adventure and a quest and sword fights and all that stuff, because it's like what I want to do and spend my time doing. Like, that's what gets me out of bed in the morning. So that feels like, don't follow the advice, follow what's in your heart.
Thank you. James?
I'm most proud of having a set that has a reputation for being warm, kind, and fun to work on. Well, thank you. That's something that I feel really strongly about as a human, but also just about for the work. And I feel very grateful that the 3 leads on the show, Thomas Brody-Sangster, David Thewlis, and Maya Mitchell, who are the loveliest people in the world, we share that vision, we set the tone from the top, and I think that's really important. So I'm very proud of that. Secondly, in terms of advice, I want to echo what my colleagues have said. You just got to work all the time. Like Kelley said, she's going to go home and work. I'm going to go home and work right now. I didn't earn money in the film industry till I was in my early 30s, but I was writing every night alongside my day job, every single night for years and years and years. It's like competing in the NBA or the Olympics. You just got to work all the time and improve your craft all the time. Networking is important, sure, but you got to do the work on the craft.
Amen. Snap, snap. The one thing that you wouldn't know from looking at me is that my previous career, I was an archaeologist. So I used to live in a Central American rainforest and dig a hole for the bathroom, pitch a tent, and catch tarantulas, because I'm weird like that. They feel like rabbits. They're real soft.
We need to have a whole other panel about this.
I was an attorney.
You were an attorney?
I was an attorney,
That's why you're a
yeah.
good writer, though.
Yeah.
But you make really good writers because you have the patience.
Right.
So I took that, though, and there was a film crew that was out when I was doing some of the archaeology, and they didn't understand what we were doing, so I ended up writing the questions and formulating the story, and that ended up writing their script without me knowing, and that went on to win all these awards at festivals, and I was like, wait a second, I could do this. And then so I decided to work at National Geographic Television Film, combining my interest in anthropology, history, and basically societal history and current issues, right? So that's what I loved. I'm a historian. And so I started working in Haiti and before the earthquake. And then I went back after the earthquake to help, and I caught wind of this Catholic orphanage. I always do air quotes, Catholic orphanage, where the nun was allowing foreign men to come in and have sex with the children. And so the more I investigated it, I found out she was not ordained by any church. She was posing as a nun. She was more of a mafia queen, and I investigated as long as I could, and that is the footage that got me into USC. But when I got there, my documentary faculty encouraged me to write it as a fiction narrative, because with fiction narrative, you can, a lot of people have a hard days at work all week, right? And they're not waking up on Saturday morning, you're like, you know what I want to watch today? Something on child trafficking. Like, that's not like the highlight of their weekend, but if you hide it with great actors, and like, so if you watch like Leonardo DiCaprio and Blood Diamond changed the laws with how we buy diamonds, Idris Elba and Beast of No Nation, you might be watching him, you're like, oh, Idris, fine, I'm gonna watch this, and you end up learning about child soldiers in Uganda. So it's a way to Trojan horse information. So I did that, and it won the Student Academy Award out of USC, which is not the most exciting thing. The most exciting thing is that gave it attention to help it change laws in New York, because we still had child trafficking laws that were a loophole that said you have to prove that the child did not consent to sex, which is exactly, and there's still 2 states that have that. And so we screened it and pushed UNICEF used it to push assembly members to help change the law, and it helped. They have been trying for a long time, but see, when you put a face to the numbers, then you can help change. So we did that, and then also my other film, Kimba, recently helped. We screened it at the Senate, we're on CNN, and it helped to get a woman who was wrongfully sentenced to double life plus 50 years. It helped her get out last year. So this is her first year free after 32 years in prison. Wow. So be intentional with your work. That's my tip to you all. When you are writing something, know why you're writing it, okay? Don't just write it because you think it'll sell. Have intention, because you do impact people and you do impact change.
Thank you. Kenny, Wes, real fast, just piece of advice?
Yeah, that's so impressive. Okay, well, I'm really proud that this whole panel of creatives is awesome, and I feel like the 6 of us could go out and make a movie right now. Another thing is I'm proud to be the first composer to do small screen content for Disney, and in the same week, Mario Galaxy movie comes out next week, which I also worked on, which is going to be a big screen kind of thing. So I'm very proud and excited about that. Now, for aspiring musicians and composers to get in there, really quickly, I'll just say no shortcuts. You got to do the work because you won't make it past a certain threshold or filter if you're not prepared for everything that's going to come at you in a long and tumultuous kind of career path. So no shortcuts. Thank you.
Wes?
What am I proud of? I am just, that people might not know, is that I'm just proud of being able to work on projects that fans and friends and family have watched, and it's like touched them in certain ways, and just maybe it's had them see the world in different ways, and just to be able to share that is like really important to me, and I'm proud of that. Just to be able to work in an industry where you can reach a lot of people and make them feel good about their lives, or help them escape difficult times, or whatever it is. Yeah, I think advice just would be to persevere and be flexible and figure out what you are good at and be passionate about that.
Amazing. Thank you. Great note to end on. That's all the time we have today. I just want to thank all of our wonderful panelists. Let's give them a round of applause. And thank you to Impact 24 PR and Comic-Con for putting this panel together, and for everyone for joining.